got a problem. Grown man, nigga. Play with one of them little boys, nigga. Play with your kids, you play with your nigga. You don't play with no grown man, nigga. Play with your.
Pooh Shiesty is currently dealing with fallout that has put his entire professional path on hold and pulled back the curtain on his tough persona. Despite all that back-in-blood bravado and his assertions that he was completely untouchable, Pooh Shiesty was caught off guard in the most embarrassing way possible. He was robbed of $40,000 inside a crowded Miami night. The startling reality behind his downfall is far more humiliating than anyone realized, and we are about to expose every detail. This Memphis artist, who crafted his whole reputation on being invincible on being the one person who could never be disrespected, had his pockets cleared out in front of hundreds of witnesses. When it occurred, he did not just accept the loss. He reacted so recklessly that he ended up shooting a guard and facing legal charges that would alter his existence forever. We are about to explore some serious street drama that has been rattling the hip-hop world. And believe me, this narrative demonstrates exactly what occurs when trying to be too real backfires. Now, before we ride this wave, let me be totally honest with you all. There has been leaked video footage spreading, clips from several perspectives showing precisely what happened that evening at King of Diamonds in Miami. Pooh Shiesty attempted to manage the story, trying to claim that nothing was ever stolen from him, but the streets witnessed everything. We are about to distinguish the truth from the myths, the authentic from the fake, and demonstrate exactly how one of the biggest young stars in rap went from the peak of success to a federal cell over $40,000 and some skinny pants. Memorial Day weekend 2021. That is the moment that altered everything for Pooh Shiesty. This Memphis rapper, who had recently exploded with Back in Blood featuring Lil Durk, was performing at the King of Diamonds club in Miami. He was at the height of his fame, his tracks were playing everywhere. He had the support of Gucci Mane, and he was getting hired for events constantly. But here's where it gets very interesting. By the conclusion of that evening, Pooh would be fleeing the venue with a weapon in his grip. A security staffer would be wounded, and the entire internet would be mocking him for getting his money snatched. Now, wait a minute before you all assume this was just some random event. Pooh Shiesty's entire brand was centered on being that person who was unreachable, who was always armed, who would fire first and ask questions later. His music focused on aggression, on being prepared for anything, on never being caught slipping. But on that specific holiday weekend, the public witnessed that even the most aggressive rappers can be caught lacking when they are distracted. So listen, King of Diamonds, Miami, Florida. Memorial Day weekend 2021. This is among the most legendary clubs in the country. The kind of place where artists go to flaunt wealth, throw cash, and get noticed. Pooh Shiesty was hired for a show, and he arrived ready to show off. We are talking about piles upon piles of money. Insiders say he had roughly $40,000 crammed into his pockets, but here's the primary error. Pooh Shiesty was rocking some extremely tight denim, like skinny jeans that were so snug you could see the shape of the cash pressing against his legs. The bundles were literally too large for his clothing. In the leaked video from his show, you can clearly witness massive rolls of cash hanging out, barely staying in those narrow pockets. It appeared as though the money could tumble out at any second. Now, in the neighborhood, we understand that when you are in a crowded spot with thousands of dollars visible on you, you are inviting trouble. But Pooh Shiesty was in work mode, enjoying the hype, tossing cash around, doing his thing on the stage. He likely assumed nobody would be brave enough to challenge him. After all, this is Pooh Shiesty we are discussing. The same guy who rhymes about shooting people. The same guy who is constantly mentioning how lethal he is. The show was wild. The fans were intense. Pooh was in his element, and everything seemed to be going perfectly. But here's where the narrative goes deeper than just a standard club gig. Several people in the audience noticed exactly how much cash Pooh was carrying, and how poorly it was secured in those snug jeans. The real gossip that had everyone stunned is that someone in that venue was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now, let's discuss what occurred next, because this is where everything falls apart. Around 4 a.m., Pooh Shiesty's show was ending, and he was pushing through the fans to exit the building. The venue was packed. People were everywhere. Fans were trying to touch him. People were asking for shots and signatures. It was total mayhem, the kind of setting where anything can go wrong. Then it happened. A fan ran into Pooh Shiesty. Now, whether this was a mistake or on purpose is debated, but what followed is undeniable. When the individual bumped him, the cash that was barely staying in those tight pants came spilling out. We are talking about rolls of hundreds just hitting the floor in the middle of a packed venue. And man, what do you assume occurred next? The audience went wild. People jumped on that cash like it was a loose ball in the big game. Arms everywhere. People grabbing bills, stuffing money in their clothing, their undergarments, their footwear, anywhere they could conceal it. In just a few moments, that $40,000 was gone, divided among dozens of people in the spot. The leaked video from various angles proves exactly what happened. You can witness Pooh Shiesty's reaction as it happens. the shock, then the realization of what just occurred, then the fury. This man went from performing and having a blast to watching a group of strangers run off with his earnings. Think about that for a second. But here is the real shocker though. Pooh Shiesty's entire brand is built on being untouchable. He is the guy who yells BLRRRD, BLRRRD, the guy who is always talking about shooting anyone who insults him. So, when this occurred, when he was robbed in front of hundreds of fans, he could not just accept the defeat and move on. That would ruin his image, his street cred, everything he used to build his brand. For you all who might not grasp what crashing out signifies, let me explain. It is when someone acts extremely reckless and damaging because they are emotional, because their pride is wounded, because they feel they must prove a point. And that is precisely what Pooh Shiesty did next. According to the legal filing and witness accounts, Pooh Shiesty attempted to get back on the stage to get a better look at who grabbed his money. He was searching around wildly trying to spot the people who took his cash, but it was too late. The money was gone and the people who grabbed it had already vanished into the crowd or were exiting the building. A security staffer noticed that Pooh Shiesty had a pistol tucked in his pants. Real talk. The guard warned him not to pull it. He told Pooh to just leave the venue, to accept the loss and go, that it was not worth a prison case. But Pooh Shiesty was emotional. He was shamed, furious, and feeling violated. His pride would not allow him to just walk away. As guards were leading Pooh Shiesty out of the spot, he drew his weapon. The leaked video shows him exiting with a black mask over his face, clearly holding a pistol in his hand. He was not even attempting to hide it. He was clutching that weapon by his side as he moved toward the door. You can see the fury in his stance. The way he is walking with intent, like he is ready to blast someone. Then, just as he moves past the lens, you hear it. Boom. A single shot rings out. The entire club explodes in terror. People begin screaming, fleeing, shoving one another, trying to escape. It is total chaos. And in the center of all that mess, a security staffer is on the floor, shot in the foot. Now, this is where the narrative gets intriguing. According to the guard's account, he saw Pooh Shiesty readying the weapon and pointing it at his chest. The staffer jumped out of the way to avoid a fatal hit, which is why the slug only struck his ankle. However, other accounts suggest it might have been an accidental fire, that Pooh was not actually aiming to hit anyone. But the weapon discharged in the scramble. Regardless, the end result is the same. A security guard was wounded and Pooh Shiesty was to blame. After the shot went off, Pooh reportedly handed the weapon to someone in his group, and the whole team fled before cops could arrive. They were gone, leaving a crime scene and a bleeding security guard behind. But here is where it gets serious, fam. You cannot just shoot someone in a crowded club and expect to get away with it. King of Diamonds has cameras in every corner. There were hundreds of people watching. Many individuals filmed the event on their devices. The proof against Pooh Shiesty was massive. Pooh Shiesty tried to manage the talk. He wrote on Instagram saying, "False claims. Nothing was ever taken from me." He was attempting to deny the robbery, trying to keep up his hard persona, but the clips told a different tale. People could clearly witness the cash falling from his pants and the crowd grabbing it. Now, in the neighborhood, we know that when an artist is robbed or insulted, usually the ones who did it will go online and boast. They will share photos with the chain they took or the money they grabbed. But in this instance, nobody came forward to take credit for robbing Pooh Shiesty. And that is because it was not really a planned robbery. It was more of a lucky grab when the cash fell out of his clothes. But the harm was done. The view was that Pooh Shiesty was robbed, and instead of just walking away, he lost control and shot a guard. That is not a good look for someone who based their entire fame on being tough and invulnerable. On June 8, 2021, about a week following the event, Pooh Shiesty was taken in. He surrendered to the law and was charged with serious assault with a weapon. This is a major count, fam. We are not talking about a small fine or a warning. This is a felony that leads to major jail time. The magistrate set his bail at $10,000, which Pooh could easily cover.
It's an aggravated battery. He's entitled to a bond. The standard bond is $10,000, and that's what I'm setting.
But here's the issue. He was already out on bail for another shooting incident in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. That case involved a reported narcotics deal or shoe sale gone bad, where 2 individuals were shot. So now Pooh had 2 different shooting cases active, and the judge from the initial case had the authority to cancel his bail and keep him behind bars. Let me explain what Pooh Shiesty was facing legally, because this is where it becomes truly dire. Florida has a rule called the 10 to 20 life statute. This rule creates mandatory minimum terms for crimes involving guns. If you pull a weapon during a crime, that is an automatic 10-year term. If you fire that weapon, it jumps to 20 years. And if someone is badly wounded or killed, you are looking at 25 years to life. Since Pooh Shiesty shot the gun and struck the guard, he was facing a mandatory minimum of 20 years in jail if found guilty. Think about that for a second. 20 years minimum for losing it over $40,000 that tumbled out of his snug pants. Pooh hired Bradford Cohen, a famous lawyer who has worked for everyone from YNW Melly to DMX. This is the same attorney who helped get pardons for Kodak. Black and Lil Wayne from Donald Trump. If anyone could help Pooh win, it was him. However, even the top lawyer on earth cannot beat massive evidence. The state had club footage, witness accounts, and physical proof. They had Pooh Shiesty on film with the weapon. They had witnesses who saw him discharge the shot. They had an injured guard who could talk. The case was tight. But here is the real shocker though. This was not Pooh Shiesty's only legal trouble. Remember that Bay Harbor Island shooting? That matter was still active, and it was also heavy. 2 people were wounded during a reported drug deal gone wrong. Pooh was already facing major time for that case, and now he had this new one on top. Eventually, Pooh Shiesty accepted a deal. In April 2022, he admitted guilt to conspiracy to have a weapon in aid of violent and drug crimes. He was sentenced to 63 months. That is 5 years and 3 months in a federal jail. He also had to pay money to the victims of the Bay Harbor Islands shooting. For those who have not been following, Pooh Shiesty was at the summit of his fame when this occurred. Back in Blood was one of the top tracks in music. He had just inked a deal with Gucci Mane's 1017 label. He was getting hired for events all over the map, and he lost it all because he could not manage his temper when he was shamed in the venue. Now, let's discuss what occurred when Pooh Shiesty returned home, because this is where the narrative becomes even more intriguing. After finishing his term, Pooh was freed from federal jail in 2025. The streets were waiting to hear what he would state about the Miami event, the robbery, and everything that happened. And Pooh Shiesty did not fail them. He shared a snippet of a new track on his Instagram story where he mentioned the event directly. But here is where it gets crazy. He totally altered his tale. In the track, Pooh rhymes that the cash tumbled out of his pants and nobody actually stole it from him. He is attempting to change history, trying to claim that it was not a robbery, that he just had a mishap with some loose money. The streets are talking and most fans are not convinced. We all watched the clips, fam. We saw the audience jumping on that cash. We saw people grabbing bills and fleeing with them. But Pooh Shiesty is holding to his tail, trying to keep up his tough persona even after everything that occurred. In the song snippet, you can hear Pooh rhyming about how the whole event was exaggerated, how people were lying about what truly happened, and how he was never robbed or violated. He is trying to take back his story, trying to convince his followers that he is still that untouchable man from Back in Blood. But honestly, the harm is done. Pooh Shiesty lost 5 years of his fame, 5 years of his existence, 5 years of his best years as an artist, all because he could not just accept a loss and move on, all because his pride would not let him walk away from $40,000 that fell out of his tight jeans. In the end, Pooh Shiesty's situation is about more than one shameful event at a club. It is about pride, about the weight to keep up a hard image, and about the results of letting your temper rule your choices. It is about what occurs when keeping it real goes wrong. The actual question is, what lesson can we take from Pooh Shiesty's trouble? The lesson is that occasionally you must be prepared to accept a loss. Occasionally you must be prepared to let your pride take a hit. Occasionally the strongest thing you can do is exit a situation instead of making it worse. Now he is home attempting to restart his career, trying to reclaim his story. He is making tracks about how he never truly was robbed, about how the cash just tumbled out of his clothes. But the web never forgets, fam. The clips are still online. The police files are still public info. The truth remains the truth no matter how much he attempts to alter the narrative. For those who understand the culture, this narrative is a sign that the hard persona that works in the streets does not always work in the actual world. When you are a famous artist, when you are earning real cash, when you have a real profession, you must travel differently. You cannot just lose it every time someone insults you or grabs something from you. The risk is too great. What are your opinions on Pooh Shiesty's trouble and his attempt to change the story? Do you think he was actually robbed? Or do you trust his account that the cash just tumbled out? And more crucially, do you think he gained wisdom, or is he going to maintain the same path that got him jailed in the beginning? Post your opinions in the comments and make sure you are following because we are going to be tracking Pooh Shiesty's return very closely.